right, we are doing something different. What are we picking up in the mic here? Not very, yeah, I guess we are. We're doing something different from what we have been doing. And when you start with something new, it's always good to ask yourself exactly what you are doing. Now, astrology and what astrology points to are very complicated and very fascinating. Human character is so interesting that everything one looks at in it is appealing, and it's all meaningful, because we are all meaningful in some way or another. And it's sort of like a jungle that's just filled with life and beauty and all kinds of things. And it doesn't take too much to get lost. If you start following on something that's engaging, pretty soon you're so far away from where you began that you have lost your way. And what usually happens is you start following something up and you're far away from understanding what is important. And that is the key principle: importance. Some things are more important and more significant than other things in our life and in a horoscope. And that is one of the key things to being helpful and to being successful in help when you're working with astrology. You want to be relevant to an issue, and you want to be relevant to a significant issue. Now, in the course of describing this, there has been a subtle shift from what came immediately before. In the early first sentences in talking, I talked about significance or importance per se, in general. And in the most recent statement, one wants to be relevant to the issue at hand. There was a shift to a specific issue, what was right before you. Most often, when you work with people to help them with astrology, you want to work on specific issues, problems, or possibilities. And those are the things that the person is evolving through. That's what they're waking up through. And when you do that, it's usually best to not try to tackle the whole horoscope. If one does try to do a general reading of the whole horoscope, the effect is that the native whose horoscope it is thinks they know all about themselves, and that they are, in that act, they are discouraged or retarded from looking any further, because they know already what is important about their life. However, if you work with one issue, and that one issue is important to the person at the time, you are ensured of having relevance. It has to be important, or the person wouldn't even have brought it up. And so that's what brings you to relative significance of things. Now, each problem or issue that you work with leads into the general character, and you do touch on the general character every time you work on things. And issue by issue, you get a fairly thorough understanding of the general character. But it isn't done all in one sitting. It's a process of growth. If you're trying to grow spiritually, you realize that it is a lifetime activity, and that the growth is something that occurs very, very slowly. Now, the process of working on a relevant issue or on working on the whole is exactly the same. The only difference is the scope. When you're working on the whole, you're working with a much larger scope, and there are many more complications. We're going to look at, in these assignments, the next few that we're going to do, we're going to be looking at the whole, but trying to look at specific problems within the whole, and in that try to get to the most relevant things in a person's life. What happens is, like I have the experience of almost 40 years in the bookstore, having people come in and say, would you look at my horoscope? And so as a consequence, I've looked at thousands, and it literally is thousands. I have a full file cabinet full of horoscopes, and on the computer I have even more horoscopes. And what I have found is that if a person is not into astrology and they're just sort of curious, the best thing to do is to speak to the strongest positive in the horoscope and the strongest negative in the horoscope and talk about them, and you'll always impress the person that astrology works, because they'll say there's nothing that you could determine that without knowing me, that those things were part of my character. That's if you have a one-shot situation. If you only have one opportunity to meet a person and they are not particularly interested in working on any kinds of problems, what you want to do is something of that nature. So, something like that is what we're doing now. We're looking for either the strongest positive or the strongest negative, or we're placing the accentuation on the positive strongest strong point and the strongest weak point, if there's such a thing as a strong weak point. So these are things that are not likely to show up primarily in the sun sign. So you're having the same experience that I had with meeting people in the bookstore saying, will you look at my horoscope? And so what we're going to do then is, for this first meeting, we're going to look, the emphasis is going to be on negatives. And so we have these two horoscopes, and we're looking at the negatives of them. All right? I know what I'm saying already, and I know what I think about these horoscopes. So in each step, you're going to have to lead the way. What do you think is the main problem? Paul, what do you think it is?
Well, for the first one...
The male. Yeah, let's just work with the male first.
Okay. To me, what it looked like is his worst problem was trying to be, he's got Aries rising, okay, with Mars in the second house.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mars is in opposition to Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I thought, was, here's how I went about it. This is what he's trying to actualize in his life, is to kind of to be himself. That's sort of his goal in life. Would be the highest thing that he could do.
Okay.
And the way that he's going to go about this, though, is he's got also, this person is a very he's an Aries, so he's got a lot of energy. He's got Aries rising, so he's got kind of energy, and he's got Uranus right off of his rising sign. And so I'm thinking this is kind of a pioneer type of person, somebody who is looking to do new things, and although being that it's in the 12th house, and I'm not sure about this, but what I put is that he has to spend a lot of time in isolation, or perhaps in New Age institutions, something like that. But the problem for him comes in where, with Mars in the second house, and the opposition like that, he is, and I don't know exactly how to describe this, but if there's such a thing as forcibly hoarding things,
Okay.
okay, that's kind of the crux of his problem, that he's trying to actualize himself but his approach is kind of hoarding things.
Okay. Usually it goes the opposite with Mars in the second house. It's spendthrifty.
Is that right?
Yeah. But all right, you're several steps ahead. Mark, what do you think the major problem in the horoscope is?
Well, I don't know, but the thing that jumps out to me is the T-square of Mars opposite Saturn square the Sun. Meaning that to sort of understand or express himself in a healthy way, he needs to keep Mars and Saturn in balance.
Okay.
Mars might be, a wild outburst or spendthriftiness or whatever it may be, that tends to be in conflict in his consciousness with the serious reserve or planning or restraint of Saturn. And if either one of them gets the better of the other, he feels like his actions are out of touch with his inner self. But if he manages to keep a healthy dynamic balance between the forcefulness of Mars and the reserve of Saturn, he can understand and express himself in a healthy way.
Okay.
So that's my first impression.
All right. Ariel, do you have any ideas on it?
Well, I know nothing, so I'm just looking in.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Yeah.
I was just looking at it as Mars being in the second house usually does mean a spendthrift, but in this case, with it being opposite Saturn in the 8th house, he's spending other people's money, and the fact that it's squared with Sun in the 6th at work, he's probably swindling somebody out of their money.
They're nice stories. All right. Ariel?
My gut feeling on this individual is that they have a difficult time reconciling what they're projecting to the world and what they feel inside. They have some inability to do that.
I would agree. I think everybody has good ideas, and everybody has jumped ahead about 3 steps. We're looking at the simple main problem. And as I see the simple main problem, I agree with all of you that it has to do with the Mars-Saturn, and especially with Mars ruling the ascendant. I think the main problem is a fierce negativity, is what I think it amounts to. Then the next thing is to describe and explain, which all of you have done already. So I'll have to just go ahead with that. I would say that the problem is, obviously, the strongest aspect in the horoscope is the Mars opposite Saturn, with Mars ruling the ascendant. So you would say that this is the strongest aspect, and Mars is probably the strongest planet. And there is reinforcement of all of the negatives from the Sun by the T-square. So what we're saying is that the opposition is not relieved directly by any aspect. Now that's the astrological description. Then you have to look for the character description. Aries rising indicates a competitive outlook with regard to what it sees and does in the world. Winning is important. And if there's no competition, there's no energy. Seeing something like this, the opposition seems to be a vigorous participation back and forth with things that would thwart or that would subdue or that would frustrate the energy. And the fact that the opposition happens in common signs or mutable signs or double-bodied signs indicates a lot of back and forth of vying. And the main determiner of everything is energy. a lot of energy. The eighth house represents loss and losing not only things, but losing the struggle of energy becomes the hated thing. And so this is the working out of hatred. So if winning is all and losing is despicable, one develops a nasty attitude toward the foes. And this is where the fierce negativity comes in. All right. The third question in the assignment was, what happens or what are the dangers if this is unattended? Paul, what do you think will happen if it's unattended? Or what are some of the dangers involved in it?
Well, I guess one of the dangers would be that the person would just sort of eat themselves up.
Okay. That's if it were unattended. I'll go along with that.
Physical illness,
What?
physical illness from the suppression of.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
I was thinking he'd probably, if the scenario that I gave was halfway true, he'd probably do some prison time.
Mark, you got any ideas on some of the dangers?
No, not yet.
The other thing, one thing that I was thinking about was, I think Jupiter is trined the sun. I'm not certain. Is it yes or no?
That's coming up in the next question.
Oh, because what I was going to say is the danger that I see was that he's a blowhard besides, or you know.
A blowhard.
What's that mean?
There's somebody that talks a lot and talks a big game but doesn't live it.
Oh,
I mean, is a con man or a flim-flam guy
oh
or
yeah,
something
flim
like
flam.
that.
All right. I'll tell you what I think are specific dangers. Now, mind you, in all of this, I have a lot more experience. The first thing I think is secrecy.
Oh yeah.
Any problem gets magnified if it is kept in secret. And here we have Saturn in the 8th house, and that indicates fears or hatreds or something like that kept secret. The second danger is everything eventually points to the sun. And if left unattended, the person is either going to identify with energy or is going to identify with hatred, in which case it would be self-hatred. And so the consequence, if it's left unattended, would be self-destruction, self-negation, and self-hatred. Now, since the sun is in the 6th house and Mars rules the ascendant, the self-destruction, either directly or indirectly, is likely to be ill health. If it is ill health, the opposition would indicate that the going back and forth would have a deteriorating effect. And then the possibility of the sun in Virgo in the 6th house would try to rationalize everything. And the fact that Mercury also forms an opposition to the moon indicates that this is somebody that would try to rationalize. All right. What do each of you think is a positive way of dealing with the thing? Paul, you got to...
Well, the only, given what I was thinking originally, the only thing I could see that could help this fellow's situation is if he could find some way to sort of let go.
Okay.
Kind of let go of things. But I don't see anything in here
Yeah.
that is going to help him
Yeah.
to do
Or
that.
yeah. Uranus might let go, but if it lets go, it would be volcanic. Mark, you got any ideas?
Well, both Mars and Saturn are in opposition in the mental signs of Gemini and Sagittarius. And with Jupiter trine the sun, possibly the person might benefit greatly by broad philosophical ideas, helping them to understand the conflicts of their life in some way, and be able to progress by broad ideas, helping them understand their situation.
Okay. I like that.
I was thinking with the sun in the 6th house and being in Virgo besides, it would be work, but you would have to try and do some sort of service work for others.
Okay.
Like volunteer in a prison.
Volunteer, yeah, or something like that. You know what I mean? It would have.
Definitely.
It would have, it's in the workhouse, but it's also in the service house. You know.
Okay.
If he thinks of other people, then you won't. Then the energy might be able to be used in service instead of self-service.
And if he works with really angry people, like juvenile delinquents or criminals that are serving time for killing other people, he may get some insight into himself and make a complete turnabout.
You know, but here's what I thought. Here's why I don't think that would work, is because I don't think that you can think yourself out of this kind of a situation. That what if there was some kind of thing of unity, or the notion of all is one, and I would think that would come from like Libra.
Okay.
That then I would say, well, maybe you could get out of this situation that way. But I don't, because to me, and I don't know if I'm understanding Virgo correctly, but Virgo's keyword is I analyze,
Mhm.
right? And I don't think that you can think yourself out of this kind of predicament.
That's
I disagree.
Okay.
that's probably. I won't say it's true or not. However, that idea of service work. The reason I get to that, and what she suggested, maybe prisons or something like that, is simply because, number one, the moon has the opposition to Mercury in the same house, or in the 6th house, which is again the house of service, and Uranus being in the 12th house. You either got, at some point in time, you're either going to be working in an institution or you're going to be institutionalized.
All right. When I look at the horoscope, you had
So
some.
this thing that you said about if there's no competition, there's no energy. With no competition, this is the death of this individual. This is what they live for. So not necessarily service work in a jail or institution, but this individual has to do something that they are the absolute best at, which is being angry or hating. And there are professions that,
Strange. Yeah.
this person could be the best at, like on a rifle range or on a safari hunt, or they can do something constructive and positive where they're actually helping other people and using their anger in a...
Yeah. Turn them into cannon fodder.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Turn them into cannon fodder.
Right.
All right. I'll tell you what I think. There's only one really strong, clear, positive aspect in the horoscope, and that's the Sun trine Jupiter. And the Sun is in the difficult pattern, but Jupiter is not. So anything that you do has to work with using Jupiter, has to work relatively indirectly. Now the trine is in Earth, meaning something has to be done definite. Now the Sun Jupiter represents a positive attitude, which is altogether different than the negative attitude of self-hatred or self-destruction. So he has to have confidence. He has to have confidence that he's all right and he doesn't suffer and that he can do something very positive. And because it's indirect, he has to do something to substitute, to fulfill the Mars-Saturn energy in a different way, to Saturn, to substitute, to have a different activity. Now, probably because there is so much in Virgo and the 6th house, it looks like, why don't you turn this mic off and put we should have had that.
You're reading my mind.
No, I had it about 5 minutes ago, but I didn't want to break up the discussion while it was flowing. Because some kind of method, being very methodical and very definite in substitution is probably the best. And because Jupiter is also in the 1st house, it has to be something physical, because the positive energy comes from the personality. So we can see that positive, definite things are involved. The only other positive aspect that has much strength to it at all is the Pluto trine the Moon, which indicates being able to hold a picture, working through imagination, and substituting imagination for the outlet of destruction, or of that energy that is destructive. All right, now what do each of you think the prognosis is? What do you think, Paul?
I don't think the prognosis is good.
All right. Mark, what do you think?
Well, I would guess the person would be up and down, have successes and failures, sort of a mixed bag.
All right. Ariel, what's your take?
Well, it depends on who he meets in life, and if they have a positive attitude about him.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's always hope for anyone.
All right.
There's
Jerry, what do you think?
He might have to start over a fair number of times.
All right.
But I think he will have short bursts of energy and go like a raped ape at something for a while, and then just because of the enthusiasm of Jupiter and Sun, but then burn out and in a very short period of time. But he'll see that it's worthwhile, he'll see that he has to do something, and so he will keep trying. That's kind of what I get out of it.
All right.
interesting.
I'll give you my prognosis. Unfortunately, I know who the person is and how the prognosis comes out, but I'll base everything astrologically. The strongest aspect is the Mars opposite Saturn. And Mars being very strong, and Saturn is Saturn, and very few people win against Saturn. However, because the whole T-square is in common signs, there is some possibility that you can be successful. And basically, this is a cardinal common character. There are only 2 fixed planets, and the other 8 are all cardinal or common, and those are very changeable, each for a different reason, so there is the possibility of change. The most positive planet is in the most fixed sign, which indicates that there is a possibility that the positiveness can be sustained, so that positive things can be substituted so that in the back and forth from both the common signs and from the oppositions, that there is that it can be sustained long enough to have a very good effect. And so my prognosis would be that there would probably be success, but probably not total success. It would not overcome things. All right, as soon as I tell you what the condition of the person is, Jerry will know right away who the person is. There are, rheumatism means pain in the joints. There are different types of rheumatism. There is osteoarthritis, which is when it is right in the joints itself, bone for bone. And then there is rheumatic arthritis, where it is in the linings of the joints, And this is a person who had rheumatic arthritis. And from my experience, rheumatic arthritis is associated especially with the negativity that comes from Mars opposite Saturn. This is a person that was crippled to the point that they were in a hospital and in a home being taken care of. But by taking very good care and by working with diet almost like a food faddist to extreme, this person was able to overcome most of the arthritis. Jerry, who is it? Oh, how could you? You don't remember it. Mark, do you have any guesses who it is?
Did he learn to play the piano in spite of his arthritis?
I don't know.
No, then I don't know.
He worked it out. He worked out the aggression indirectly. Ariel was completely right in saying that he was good at being the most vicious of all, but he wasn't actually vicious. He was indirectly vicious.
A
Anybody else?
nasty comedian?
How about a nasty actor?
W.C. Fields?
No.
Sylvester Stallone?
No, that kind of a person. And it isn't Arnold either, but it's a generation earlier than Stallone and Arnold.
Not John Wayne.
No?
I know who it is, it'd be cheating for me to say.
You know who it is?
Yeah, I know who it is.
No, it isn't.
Because you probably read about him. No, say it.
Yeah, it's James Coburn.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
And at the end of his life, I
He
love
was
James
very
Coburn.
arthritic.
I just thought he was great.
So now you can see what he
Yeah,
worked with.
yeah.
Isn't it great to
Wow.
see how?
At the end of towards the end of his life, his hands were really
yeah, you saw his hand.
crippled up, yeah.
Right, they were,
But he was partially successful.
Was he? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he came back quite a ways.
I mean, yeah, you see him in the movies, his fingers were, I mean, I can't make them like that. They were going down this way, they were that crisp.
Yeah,
My
they were
Saturn is
really-
almost directly on his ascendant, and I didn't like him. He was too realistic as a bad guy
I
to
liked
me.
him. I thought he was great, yeah.
Yeah. So,
I thought he was almost full of crap.
What I wondered about, which I didn't see afterwards, was all of the, one of his things was the martial arts. He met Bruce Lee and all of that. And I'm wondering where would you see something like that?
just the Mars Saturn is
Just
enough alone.
Mars,
Yes.
Saturn.
And see, that's interesting.
But
because-
that makes it to be a really bad guy, but not really trying to hurt the other person. Yeah.
And that would be a good channel for a really angry, hateful person is to do
Right.
martial arts, right?
But I mean, to give you an idea of how overblown or blowhard he was, he played in this one movie, what was it? He had this cell phone, or this phone on, a wristwatch phone, and it'd go do 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 do. I forget what it was. It was some sort of spy.
Our man Flynn.
Our man Flynn. I mean, and that.
That's going back a ways.
Jerry gets negative about his negativity. I love it.
I mean, it shows up though. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the type of role he wanted. I mean, it was bigger than life. There's no possible way it'd be true, and he would play it.
Yeah,
And that's the
But that's-
positive aspect of what he did.
Yes.
He took it on.
yeah. See, that's, people like that unreal violence, because they get to work it all out, and provided they don't do it themselves, which kids actually do, it can be the release that Paul was talking about, some kind of explosive relief. This is why people like James Bond, they can't possibly, nobody could possibly do those things and know all of that and such. But, they make it not too impossible so that you're willing to believe, and then you act it all out that way. All right.
And that indirectly is service to others, is service to other people,
Yes,
because
sure.
you're helping them to cathartic experiences, right?
Yeah, and that's the indirectness of it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, 'cause he's dealing with it through the movies.
Yeah, yeah. Better that way than fighting with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's look at the female.
Oh.
Are we doing her negative first?
Yes, we're looking at what each person thinks the main problem is. All right, you want to say what you think, Ariel?
I need to study this just for a
Yeah.
moment and then
All
I'll.
right.
I haven't looked at it yet either, so
Mark, what do you think the main problem is?
he's first looking at it too, 'cause he just got it tonight.
Glancing at it here.
Well, it seems with the sun and the 12th, I'm always mystified when there's a lot going on in the 12th house because my understanding of the 12th house
That's a
is,
good attitude to have, because anytime you see planets in the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th, you have to realize there's going to be a mystery, and even with astrology, you may not be able to solve it.
right, but that's what I'm, there is so much that's suppressed or,
Now, for
Secret.
half of the planets are
Yes.
in the 4th and the 12th house.
Well, the biggest thing might be the fact that the sun is almost an exact opposite to Mars. And the sun is in, nor is Mars. In either of the strong houses.
Okay,
So
the,
he might be,
Houses.
or she might be an anemic person of some sort, but I would think that would be the biggest detriment, a low-energy person of some sort.
okay, Mark, what do you think?
Well, I've only glanced at it briefly. It seems to me that there are at least two significant complexes here that might result in a complicated and contradictory character. You have the Sun square Uranus and Mars square Uranus, even though the whole thing isn't a T-square. And with the Sun in the 12th house, it could be certain mysterious, explosive, or high energy sorts of situations from that complex. And you have Saturn square the moon and square Mercury,
Yes.
indicating a somewhat different but also strong complex, even though I guess the whole thing is again not
That's
actually.
pretty, that's extremely strong.
Well, that is more of a T-square type situation.
Yeah, even the Uranus is a T-square.
Okay.
So can you sum up real quickly, what do you think is the main problem? Without getting into, you're jumping ahead several steps. We want a simple problem that we're working with first. Is there anything in common between those two patterns?
Water and air, water and air.
she cancels herself out.
No? Paul, got any ideas?
You know, that wasn't what jumped out to me about it. What jumped out to me about it was the 4th and the 6th house. How they seem to be kind of going back and forth and back and forth, but I can't quite figure out what would be the result of all this, where the ruler of the rising sign, and that's where I'm starting, to figure out what's the person's big problem. First, the way that I approached this was, okay, what would be their highest potential? And then what's the obstacle to that
That's what we're
highest?
doing next week.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You jumping
All right.
ahead.
All right.
Yeah, good.
I'll come back next week,
No, it's not next week. I think it's 2 weeks from
2
tonight.
weeks from now. And I couldn't really figure it out, because for one thing, I'm never sure is if in the fourth house, if Saturn in the fourth house, would that be the mother or the
Probably
father?
the father.
The father, okay. So there seems to me to be like some kind of just general thing where it's not working, where
Okay.
the moon, the ruler of the ascendant is in the sixth house. The ruler of the sixth house is in the fourth house. But neither one seems to me very comfortable in that situation.
Okay.
But that's,
Jerry, got any ideas?
Well, I think the biggest thing, one of the biggest things is probably gonna be the fact that Uranus is at the very top. This would indicate a person that in some, I would say, some weird way, and due to the fact that Uranus is in Pisces, which is normally in the 12th, and it's squared to the stuff in the 12th, normally the stuff would be secretive or unknown, but this person will have some sort of notoriety, and I don't know if they'll know how to handle it.
Okay. All right, I think everybody has something right. The kind of thing I was looking for is that I think that the main problem in this horoscope is that the emotions swamp or overwhelm the mind, even the self. Mars is an emotional planet, and Uranus is in Pisces, which is emotional, and they subdue the more mental self-image of the sun. The moon is obviously emotional. Saturn is another subduer, and Mercury is in an emotional sign. So I think that the basic problem is that uncontrolled emotions overcome the rationality and of the spirit in being able to use that rationality. All right, do you want to describe the problem? I guess all of you have tried to do that.
Well, this person could become an alcoholic
Mm-hmm.
with that condition.
Mm-hmm. You better believe it, in spades, all of that
With-
water sign
With,
rising.
of the two T-square situations, each has one arm in the 12th house.
Yep,
Person could end up institutionalized or in rehab or some
Yeah.
sort of thing like that.
Yeah, especially again considering that one of the squares from the 12th house is to Uranus, which is notorious for if that's in the 12th house, that you usually end up being institutionalized in some form or another.
okay. The strongest pattern is the T-square between Mercury, Saturn, and the Moon. And Moon rules the ascendant, and it disposes Mercury, and the Moon is void of course. That's the astrological description right there. The Moon ruling the ascendant is somebody who is moody, and the Saturn square the Moon indicates that the moods are dark and depressive, and there are feelings of futility. And the Moon void, of course, indicates a lack of motivation or no sense of purpose to overcome it. The Moon opposite Mercury indicates the Moon is too much for the mind and might not even respect the mind. The Mercury opposite Saturn could indicate concentration, but it is very dangerous for its secrecy.
You mean squared Saturn?
That Mercury square Saturn, yes. Because alcoholics are very seriously secretive. I lived at one time with an alcoholic, and the person had bottles hidden all over the house and the yard, and nobody knew that the person was an alcoholic and had these bottles all over the place until after everything came out, and then it came out. But denial. Mercury square Saturn indicates dangerous secrecy and denial. And all of the planets in the 12th house indicate furtive behavior. So this is somebody that is, with the 12th house, is destiny logged, or they're destiny laden, and the weight is so heavy that she can't see herself. With the sun in Gemini, she would like to see herself as being reasonable, but she'll take any emotional impulse. This is somebody who's impulsive, that in response to the negativity will be exceedingly impulsive and jump off at this and that and that, and it is not, not consistent at all. Plus, we take the fact that Mars is opposite the Sun, and in a female's chart, that indicates someone that doesn't understand men and projects all of her problems onto men and loves to fight with them. And so we can see that that's the form that the impulsiveness takes. It becomes the ultimate ally. It's because of the bad men in my life that this happens.
Is that like cat on a hot tin roof?
Something like that. All right. What do you think is dangerous about this? Again?
I think she could be suicidal.
Yeah. Again, we have secrecy. She's not looking directly at things, and there's, is intentionally trying to hold things in. And again, there's a potential of ruined health in this person, especially to the nervous system. Because the nervous system represents the mental faculties that are overwhelmed. There's also the possibility of insanity or disregard for her own well-being. She might think that she's doing some very brave things and she's just acting impulsively.
So she's someone without boundaries.
Yeah. And so there is the possibility of complete despair in this person. All right? What does everyone think is the positive way of dealing with the problem?
She doesn't have any. Well, go ahead.
No, I'm fishing for the positive here.
She's got a lot of trines to work with, or that says she knows how to do something, and some squares also that means she has some tools to work with to accomplish those
Yeah,
things.
they
So
soften those hard aspects.
Mark, do you have any ideas?
Not right away. Let me see here.
She could teach theater, teach people about their emotions and channel them into a...
If she knew how to do it
Well,
first.
she would have to have someone teach her. She needs a lot of help.
Yeah. Paul, do you have any ideas?
Well, it looks like that there are possibilities for a person to have like a private situation in their home, to be able to find some balance and recoup themselves in a real private situation.
Like what?
Like a house, like their house.
Just staying at home.
Yeah, like
Being
stay,
alone all
yeah,
by
just stay at
yourself?
home. Well, I don't know if it would be alone or not, but it looks to be like that would be a possibility where a person could, kind of gather themselves.
Okay.
They're at home. Although I don't understand exactly. It does seem like with the Saturn and with that thing I was talking about in the sixth house, that there's some problem.
There is even some possibility of agoraphobia. in the house, by staying in the house too much.
Okay.
Saturn and Neptune usually indicate extreme fears, and Saturn in the fourth would indicate something like that. Mark, any ideas?
Well, the trine of Neptune to Mars might offer some possibilities. I don't know what that would be if Neptune could indicate some sort of figure as a teacher of the mystic aspects of religion or something would be a benefit to her.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
a
you're on the right
possibility?
line. I think if you look at the horoscope, the only positive aspects, and Neptune is the only planet that is without a negative aspect at all, come from Uranus and Neptune. And therefore you have to conclude that the way to deal with the problem best is through something spiritual. She has to find something, especially with Neptune in the second house, which is one of the houses of evaluation. She has to have something of value to replace despair, and it can't be just impulsiveness. However, because Neptune is in the second house, it might get co-opted by material value. Material values, such that she might think that pills are the answer. Or she might even, what Jerry was pointing to before with Uranus in the 10th house, even though Uranus does sextile and trine the Mars and the Sun, it's I'm sorry, Uranus does trine the Venus.
Yeah.
There is creativity there, but it's still too hard to control it all. The Neptune sextile the Sun indicates she can know herself, and she can know herself with objectivity. Uranus can do spontaneous creation when it's in a trine with Venus, but she's giddy with fame, and she gets charged up from fame, and that's when she acts impulsive and she feels like she's invulnerable to everything. So there are a few things that can be done. Psychological self-knowledge from the Sun, Neptune. There is the possibility of healing, spiritual faith healing or something like that with the direction of energies of Mars and Neptune. And even physical exercise would be very good for improving the psychological health of this person when Mars is in the 6th house in some kind of positive aspect that is always an option. And the quest for beauty, finding beauty in the world around her, because the Uranus-Neptune is a trine between octaves that indicates a very excellent aesthetic sense. So that if she did that, those would be things that she could be healed by them. All right? Prognosis. What does each person think for a prognosis? Ariel, what do you think?
Well, I keep going back to that I wrote the emotion swamp or overwhelm the mind, that her prognosis is good if she can learn like a meditation where she detaches and just becomes the observer. She just needs to observe. And
Okay, Mark, what do you think?
Well, I would say things would be difficult for her in the shorter term, more outward things of her life. She's going to have a lot of problems. But with the introduction of some sort of spiritual knowledge and exercises, there may be the gradual background growth of positive factors in her life.
Okay, Paul, what do you think?
I really don't know. I couldn't see very clearly what the problem was,
Okay.
But I wonder about the Venus rising, is that what would you say about that?
That is depreciation of beauty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jerry?
Well, I didn't, One of the things I had, first, I want to comment about Uranus and Venus trine. I was thinking she's got to learn some sort, or knows some sort of universal love. And I did see the trine between Neptune and Mars. I thought about healing, but I didn't know if that, I knew the energy was there, but I didn't know if it would be positive or not. As far as prognosis, if she mulls about the things of this world, which she has a tendency to do or is prone to do because of the heavy aspects, then the prognosis is not good. If, on the other hand, she takes the time to realize that there is much more solace in the spiritual world, then I think the prognosis is quite good.
Okay. Well, my view is that this is an exceedingly pathetic individual, and that this individual has little chance to succeed in human betterment in life. Very little chance. The horoscope is even more cardinal common, making this an extremely unstable person, and Neptune is the only fixed planet, and Neptune is quite weak with its aspects. If you count the aspects up, the malefic aspects are more, and the strongest ones, the overwhelmingly strongest aspects, are the negative ones. And so there is, she's fighting against overwhelming odds, and she doesn't have enough of a sense of purpose to lift her above the astrology. The only thing that I could see that would be beneficial for this person is right from the get-go. If she were to have a very rigorous and strict upbringing, not just for the strictness, but to give her a sense of value, and especially to give her good habits. Because when you have a cardinal common person, especially with a lot in the common signs, they almost ask for discipline in their life because they know they would fall apart if they didn't have good habits for them. So I see this as the prognosis is very, very unlikely for success as a human being.
I will agree with you, provided that she does not know anything at all and does not want to know anything about astrology. If on the other hand, if she were to study it intensely so that she realizes that that's what life is made of, then she would, at that point in time, I think, realize what she would have to do. Otherwise, there isn't the strength there to follow through on any of it. And
with regard to that, I would say if wishers were horses, then beggars were riders. This is not somebody that you're suddenly going to turn them into an astrologer. This is somebody that at most would try to escape all of these things. Anybody have any guesses who it is? Very famous, very talented alcoholic.
Joan Crawford?
No?
Well, it's either Lauren Bacall or Britney Spears.
No? It's too old to be to be Britney Spears.
How old is this person?
She'd be 86 if she's still alive.
Yeah, she died a long time ago.
Did she play in whatever Having a Sweet Baby Jane? Or no, whatever. Who is that?
Betty Davis?
Betty Davis?
No, but she did play in The Wizard of Oz.
Judy
Garland.
This is Judy Garland?
Yes, it's very, very pathetic.
So when I said she might commit suicide, I wasn't too far off.
Yeah.
See, that thing you said about astrology, if they were interested in astrology, wouldn't in that case, they would become so identified, they would become so overwhelmed with what you're telling them that they wouldn't be able to handle it?
Some would and some wouldn't. I think this one would.
Yeah,
This is a Marilyn Monroe type that couldn't handle that kind of information. All right. These are the, yes.
Question, two questions
I
actually.
need to go on.
First question is, what is co-ascendant? What does that mean?
Co-rulers of the ascendant.
Oh, thanks.
7 degrees Cancer. Well, the ruler is,
Well, co-ascendant is, I think it's the median, I'm not sure what they're saying on this.
oh, okay.
It's, some astrologers have a lot of mathematical motions in their head.
Okay.
say the first one was?
The
But
Who did we say the first one
James
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 Cook.
thank
That's
you,
for next time.
everyone. Thanks for everything. I just
Yeah.
have to run and.
Okay.
well, you fit in really nicely.
Oh, I'll be back. I
We enjoyed you.
just don't know what to do to
Yeah.
study. I don't know anything.
Well, tomorrow night, we're talking about the Aquarian age, and
Okay, I'll see if I can make it
it'll be a
tomorrow.
different kind of thing.
7:30 also, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Good night.
Okay, good night. Okay, get home safely.